Hi, Vintage Stereo Buff here. Today I have two amps. They're both Special Edition Electronics A275 amps. I've had this one on the left for about 3 or 4 years. When I got it, I didn't have the AMM1 or the other equipment to test the actual power output. But I went ahead and I ordered some new caps for it because I wanted to run it, and I replaced all the capacitors in here, 13 of them, and I replaced these two, which were 470 microfarads. So I replaced them with the same ones, but you can see this place looks a little bigger. Anyway, I got it all recapped, and it had a couple other things I had to repair in it, and I put all new FETs in this amp. It came with 50N05 FETs. I didn't have any of those, and somebody told me to replace them with IRFZ 34s. So that's what I put in it. I replaced all 4 of them that were cooked. I also replaced these 2 voltage regulators. And I also replaced all 8 of the outputs on this one. And these have 2 N6488 outputs and 2 N6491 outputs. And on the other amp, I just got about a month ago. That's the one I did another video of, where I left this cover off and I fried one of the FETs. Well, I thought one went up in smoke. So anyway, I took those FETs out. All 4 were bad, and I replaced all 4 of the FETs, and another person told me I should use the IRFZ 44s instead of the 34s. So this has the upgraded, this one has the upgraded ones. Anyway, it still didn't work, and I found one output here, and I replaced it. And then I noticed this uses the 2 N6487 and the 2 N6490 outputs. I replaced one of the 90 outputs. That's a PNP, but I only needed one. But I don't think that these are the original caps in this one. It may have been recapped too. But I noticed this one has 1000 microfarad rail caps instead of 470 microfarad rail caps. So I'm going to test both of these amplifiers, and I'm going to test them first using a 12-volt battery, and then I'll test both of them with my 13.8-volt power supply. The reason being, sometimes when I test with the power supply, when I get almost to maximum power out of them, I wonder if the power supply isn't running out of amperage, and maybe I could get more power out of them if my power supply would supply more amperage at the 13.8 volts. Which is why I'm testing it also with the battery, because the battery will supply as much current as I need, even though it's only 12 volts. So I'm just going to run 8 ohm and 4 ohm bridge tests on each amp, continuous 40 hertz test, and then I'm going to do it in both the 12 volt and the 13.8, and I'll compare them. So I'll get it all set up. Okay, my next test will be amp 1, the repaired and recapped one, 12 volt battery test, 40 hertz continuous at 8 ohms bridged to 1%. I'll plug in my power supply, my battery charger, to keep my voltage up. Turn on my meters are on, power amp is on. Looks like 90. Right about 90 watts. Watts is at 4 ohms at 1%. Okay, my next test is going to be amp 2. It's the one that I repaired, but I'm not sure if it had been recapped before or not. It's a 12 volt battery test, 40 hertz continuous tone at 8 ohms bridged. This is an amp with a 1000 microfarad rail capacitors. And you can, there's the battery voltage. Here is the distortion light right here. And I'll measure the power on the AM-M1. Okay. Plug my power battery charger in to keep my voltage up. Turn this on. Okay, looks like we're ready to roll. $122. $124. $127 watts at 8 ohms with 12.44 volts battery input. Not what I expected it to do, but I guess that's not too bad. That would be around 254 into 4 if you calculate it. Okay. Okay, the first test I'm going to do is on amp 1, which is a recapped and repaired amp. It's 12 volt battery input, 40 hertz continuous at 4 ohms bridged to 1%. This is the amp with the 470 microfarad rail caps. Watch, here's the battery voltage. Here is the 1% light. And on this meter, we'll read the power output. I'm going to set it on dyno mode to where it locks on. And before I start the test, I'll plug the charger in to keep my voltage up. Amp on. Okay, here we go. $117, $122 into 4 ohms. 122 into 4 ohms. That's with 12.88 volts battery voltage. Okay, next test I'm going to do is on amp 2. It's the one I repaired. 12 volt battery test. 40 hertz continuous at 4 ohms bridged. This is the one with 1,000 microfarad rail caps. Okay, there we go. $164 watts into 4 ohms. Yep, 164 into 4 ohms, that's all I can get. And that's with the 12.05 in battery input. Okay, now I have amp 1, the recapped and repaired one, on a 13.8 volt power supply, 40 hertz continuous sine wave at 8 ohms bridged to 1%. This is the one with the smaller 470 rail caps. $138 at 8 ohms. 144 at 8 ohms. Not bad. Okay, my next test, amp 2, 13.8 volt power supply, 40 hertz continuous at 8 ohms bridge to 1%. There's my meters. There's a distortion light. Here's the power indicator. So, there we go. 154 to 4 ohms. Oh, 154 to 8 ohms. Okay, for my next test, I got amp 1, the recapped and repaired one, 13 volt supply, 40 hertz continuous at 4 ohms bridge to 1%. This is the one with the smaller rail caps. I'm going to read the dyno mode. There's a, I'll zoom in a little bit more. Okay, here we go. This one only do about 237 into 4 ohms. Okay, my next test on amp 2 was a 13.8 volt power supply, 40 hertz continuous into 4 ohms bridged, 1%. 256 watts into 4 ohms. Well, I'm all done, and this is the one I recently got, and this is the one that I recapped that I've had a few years. I recapped it and I replaced all the FETs in this one with IRFZ 34s, which they may have been smaller than the originals. This also has the 470 microfarad rail caps. This amp has the 1000 microfarad rail caps, and these FETs I replaced with IRFZ 44s. They're a little bit bigger. And as far as my test results go, this amp here on the 13.8 volt tests at 4 ohms, it put out 7% more power than this one. And on the 13.8 volt 8 ohm tests, this one again put out 7% more power than this one. On the 12 volt 4 ohm tests, this one put out 33% more power than this one. And on the 12 volt 8 ohm tests, this one put out 40% more power than this one. So I don't quite understand that large of a discrepancy on the 12 volt tests, but on it ranges from 33 to 40. But on these tests on my power supply, they were closer. In fact, they were the same, 7% difference. So anyway, this amp I thought I was having a lot of trouble with, and it just wasn't doing its power. But apparently, this time when I tested it, it's doing almost as good as this one. And they are like 25 years old or more, so I'm pretty pleased with the results. And anyway, the amps are rated, I think that they're rated at 14.4 volts from the factory. So my power ratings are going to be slightly under the 300 watts that they claim. Anyway, for now, if you like this video, push the like button. If you dislike it, push the dislike button. Also, if you'd like to make some comments or suggestions, I would welcome those. But for now, Vintage Stereo Buff out.